Welcome to the 2023 Gaming Laptop Awards. We've tested 34 different gaming laptops this year, and I've got awards in 20 different categories to give out, so let's get into it. Our first category is Best GPU, as this is the #1 factor in determining game performance. Now, in terms of pure gaming performance, Nvidia's GeForce RTX 4090 laptop GPU is objectively the best. But that said, at the end of the day, performance all comes down to GPU power limits, because we can absolutely have a lower tier RTX 4050 with higher power limit hitting higher FPS in games compared to a higher tier RTX 4060 but with a lower power limit. With that in mind, I think the best GPU category is more about the best all-rounder for most people, rather than just the best, most expensive, best performing option. And this year, I think that's Nvidia's RTX 4060. The 4060 was actually the most popular laptop GPU sold this year through the affiliate links below our videos. So it looks like you guys think it's a great choice too. And unlike the older RTX 3060, RTX 2060, and even GTX 1060, the 4060 finally makes the jump up from 6 gigs of VRAM to 8 gigs. And the 4060 performs quite well in modern games at high settings, even at 1440p. But at the end of the day, it is only 13% faster compared to last year's RTX 3060. Granted, that doesn't get you newer features like DLSS 3 frame generation in supported games. The more expensive RTX 4070 still has the same amount of VRAM capacity as the 4060, and as the 4070 only performs about 20% better in games on average, it may not be worthwhile. But of course, it depends on the price difference. For example, if a 4070 laptop is 10% more money but you get 20% more performance, then yeah, it might be worth the extra. After best GPU, I think it only makes sense to cover best CPU next. Again, if we're just talking about best Cinebench numbers or something, then AMD's 16-core Ryzen 9 7945HX has the win when it comes to multi-core, while Intel's Core i9 13980HX has the win in single core. As far as gaming goes at the mid-range, honestly, it's a tie between Intel's Core i7 13700H and AMD's Ryzen 7 7840HS. I compared both of these CPUs in 26 different games, and yeah, on average the Intel chip was 1% faster than AMD at 1080p. But this is such an insignificant difference that it feels silly to say that Intel is the winner. As we can see here, results vary depending on the specific game, and then the difference is even smaller at the higher 1440p resolution. Some games had some bigger swings in favor of Intel here, but for the most part, more games were slightly ahead on AMD. But again, the average difference over all 26 games is basically nothing. So in terms of best gaming laptop CPU at the mid-range, you really can't go wrong with Intel or AMD this year. The difference is small outside of gaming too. In some workloads, Intel was much faster, but in other workloads, AMD was much faster. Again, on average, in a number of different sorts of workloads, it's only a very minor difference and not worth worrying about unless there's some specific task you're using your laptop for. Now, if we're instead talking about the best performing laptop CPU in games, then it's easily gotta be AMD's Ryzen 9 7945HX 3D. Man, that thing's a mouthful. And that's because of AMD's 3D V-Cache. It's faster in games compared to the non-3D version, which came out a few months earlier, and faster than Intel's best Core i9 13980HX, though the difference gets smaller and smaller at higher resolutions where the processor matters less. The 7945HX 3D also had the lead in more non-gaming workloads compared to Intel too, both at lower and higher power levels. But again, it does vary depending on the specific workload. Unfortunately, at least right now, the 7945HX 3D is exclusive to ASUS's SCAR 17, which is an older 2022 laptop chassis design. It's not bad or anything, it's just not as nice as a newer model like the ASUS SCAR 18. So maybe a few minor compromises if you really want the 3D. Next up is best battery life, which is kind of important in portable machines. There's more to this category than simply having the biggest battery, though that does certainly help. Runtime on battery is heavily affected by the components inside the laptop, as well as various software optimizations. Purely in terms of longest runtime, the Asus TUF A16 was the best in terms of YouTube video playback, lasting for more than 10 hours. Unfortunately, AMD's Radeon graphics seem to let it down when it comes to gaming on battery power. Lenovo are clearly better in that regard, with their Legion Slim 7i lasting for more than 2.5 hours. And last year, Lenovo's Slim 7i lasted the longest with a game running too, so it seems like Lenovo's onto something there. Alongside good battery life, we also want good performance while running on battery power. I mean, if your laptop lasts for like 10 hours but you can't actually use it to do any work, does it really matter? If we look at Cinebench performance, but with the charger unplugged, AMD's top-end Ryzen 9 7945HX and 3D V-Cache version have the win. But that said, there are also more 8-core Ryzen laptops closer to the top of the chart now compared to before when we looked at CPU performance in the best CPU category. Don't get me wrong, there are some Intel options still up there performing well on battery power, but compared to running the test with the charger connected, well, AMD has definitely clawed its way up. Again, it's not always the case, but more often than not, we find that AMD-based gaming laptops tend to perform better when running on battery power compared to Intel. Let's move over to the best screen next. The screen is more important than you might think, because it's what you're actually going to be looking at when using the laptop. And there's a lot to consider, like brightness, color gamut, response time, refresh rate, backlight bleed, resolution, and size. I've said before that I really like OLED, and we only tested one OLED screen this year in Lenovo's Legion Slim 5 14-inch. So that kind of wins by default. The response time is super fast, color gamut is excellent, contrast is perfect, and backlight bleed is impossible. The only downsides are that it's glossy, so reflections show up. But I know many people prefer glossy screens. I think it gets bright enough, but 500 nits would have been nice. A lot of gaming laptops this year went to 16-inch 16x10 screens. And it just seems that there aren't really many high refresh rate OLED screens at this size. So there just wasn't as many OLED laptop options this year compared to what we had last year. But hopefully that changes next year. I mean, we've just gone through 12 months of everyone going to 16x10, so hopefully the companies making the screen panels catch up. Otherwise, the mini LED screens in Asus's Zephyrus M16 and Razer's Blade 16 looked great too and got far brighter. Response time isn't quite as good, but color gamut is still very high compared to most others tested. There's no real point having a good CPU and GPU if you can't keep them cool. And there are a few important things when it comes to gaming laptop cooling. Like, you don't want the fans to get too loud. Of course, faster fan speed helps reduce temperatures, but once you get above 55 decibels or so, the noise starts getting too loud. Even with headphones on, it can be distracting. With the fans maxed out, Acer and MSI laptops were the loudest, with some Lenovo machines not far behind. But you absolutely do not need to run with the fans maxed out to get good performance in most cases. It's just nice to have it as an option for those that don't care about total system volume and want to run cooler. And even if we don't manually max the fans out, MSI was still the loudest in this case, with Gigabyte's Aura 17X the third loudest. If we instead sort all fan noise results by quietest, XMG's Neo 16 with liquid cooler attached was the quietest, which is kind of impressive considering it's basically got maxed out CPU and GPU specs in a 16-inch chassis, allowing it to perform close to bigger 17 and 18-inch designs. I think this has to be the winner, because adding water cooling to a gaming laptop is kind of insane. And the implementation is way better this generation too, with an easily removable magnetic connector. Performance in games is improved with the liquid cooler attached, though mainly at lower resolutions. It makes far less of a difference at higher resolutions like 4K. But special mention to Asus's Scar 17, which is another max-spec gaming laptop that wasn't that much louder than the Neo 16. It was the fourth quietest gaming laptop tested all year. Yet it's packing a 16-core 32-thread CPU and RTX 4090 graphics. Impressive stuff. Granted, it is of course bigger than the 16, 15, and 14-inch laptops, so it has more room for heatsinks and heat pipes, allowing it to get away with quieter fans. Next up is best keyboard. This one is going to come down to personal preference, and will be much more subjective compared to the previous categories that were more data-driven. It's also going to be a challenge for me because I don't have all 34 gaming laptops that we tested this year here at the same time to test side by side. So basically, I'm working off of my memory, the notes I took at the time of review, and video clips that I captured during the review. That said, I personally do like using mechanical keyboard switches, even if they are louder sounding. So this year, that narrows it down to either MSI's Titan GT77, Alienware's X16, or XMG's Neo 16. Out of those options, from memory, I like the typing feel of the Alienware the most. But it's the only one that doesn't have a numpad, so if that's important to you, then the next best mech keyboards were MSI's Titan, and then the Neo 16, because I thought the layout of the Titan was a bit nicer. All three laptops are quite expensive though. Turns out they don't really put mechanical keyboards on budget-friendly options. But as far as non-mechanical options go, personally, I really like typing on any Lenovo keyboard. The keys just have a subtle clicky feel, which I like. But my partner always says that she isn't really a fan of them. So it just goes to show that your mileage may vary. If you get the option to test out any of these laptops in a store, definitely give that a shot. And speaking of touching things, Best Touchpad is up next. Again, it's a similar deal as Best Keyboard, in that I'm going based off my memory, because I don't have all 34 laptops to test side by side. But based on my memory and notes, for me, it's gotta be the Asus Zephyrus M16 or Zephyrus G14. Both just felt super accurate to use and click nicely. And Razer's glass touchpads are a close second and quite nice too. They are very big this year, but I didn't find them to get in the way while typing. It was pretty rare this year for a touchpad to just straight up suck. And realistically, I'm pretty sure most of you playing games are just gonna connect a mouse anyway. Let's make our way over to the best speakers next. After reviewing all of my sound recordings, the winner has gotta be Asus's Scar 18. There's some nice bass and they sound clear. MSI's Stealth 14 was a close second, which surprised me as it's a much smaller laptop. It does have front-facing speakers, but due to the suboptimal placement, they're very easy to cover with your hands, which makes them sound worse. Razer's Blade 18 wasn't far behind in third place, but it also costs the most out of the three. Apple's MacBook Pro 14 also deserves a shout out. It's easily the best and sounded great. But technically, it's not a gaming laptop, which is what we're focusing on in this video. But I think it's nice to have as a gold standard that gaming laptops really need to strive for. Though that said, even good gaming speakers aren't going to sound great once the fans are going in a game. So personally, I don't put too much weight on speakers anyway, and just rely on a good pair of headphones instead. Now let's find out which gaming laptop has the best port selection this year. Generally, the bigger the laptop, the more ports that it's physically able to fit. MSI's Titan GT77 was one of the biggest laptops this year, and I think it's got the best connectivity overall. It might not have the most USB ports, that probably goes to Lenovo's Legion Pro 7, but it's got other less common options, like mini DisplayPort output and SD card slot. Unfortunately, none of its ports are on the back, which I personally prefer as it allows cables to run out the back and stay out of your way. It's just a nicer experience compared to having your laptop with a bunch of cables coming out the sides and then you've got your mouse hand and... Lenovo generally offer lots of ports and typically have quite a few of the big bulky ones on the back. Surprisingly, Gigabyte's budget-friendly G5 also had a lot more options when compared against the majority of other laptops out there. So we've got both cheap and expensive options if you need lots of connectivity. Next, let's find out which laptop had the best Wi-Fi speed. Purely in terms of raw transfer speeds, Razer's Blade 18 was the best. But I mean, you can see the results here. There's not really a whole lot of difference between the best results. And realistically, unless you're doing lots of local network transfers, like from a NAS, most people won't be able to tell the difference unless you've got faster than gigabit speed anyway. Here are the worst results that didn't fit on the graph. Basically, as long as you stay away from Realtek, you should be fine. And that seems to generally come with AMD laptops. But in most cases, you can upgrade to an Intel Wi-Fi card for like $20. Our next category is Best Upgradeability. Most gaming laptops this year had 2 M.2 slots, 2 memory slots, and removable Wi-Fi. That's pretty standard and what I consider to be good upgradeability. But that wasn't always the case. There were certainly those with less than that, especially the smaller 14-inch designs, where compromises have to be made due to less space. But there were also some laptops pushing things to the extreme. I've given upgradeability scores to laptops based on things like ease of access and how many memory and storage slots are available. This year, MSI's GT77 Titan is leading the way by a fair margin. And this is because it's the only gaming laptop I've tested this year that has 3 M.2 storage slots and 4 DDR5 memory slots. Not only that, but one of those M.2 slots offers PCIe Gen 5 support. And although we first saw that come to some select laptops last year, MSI is still one of the few offering it this year. Now, it is fairly large in order to fit all of this hardware inside, so that's the trade-off. I think of it more like a portable desktop replacement. It's also worth pointing out that last year's 12th gen Titan actually supported 4 M.2 slots instead of 3. So in that regard, the 2023 model is actually a slight downgrade in terms of upgradeability. If I recall, I think MSI said that the 13th gen chipset required more space on the motherboard, so they couldn't fit the 4th M.2 slot. Now let's find out which gaming laptop is the most portable. Unfortunately, we didn't get the 13-inch Asus Flow Z13 or X13 this year, so we're limited to the 14-inch models we tested. The Asus Zephyrus G14, Razer Blade 14, Lenovo Legion Slim 5, and MSI Stealth 14. Purely in terms of weight, the Asus Zephyrus G14 was the lightest without the power brick. But if we factor the chargers in, then Lenovo's Legion Slim 7 was the lightest. The sizes are a little different, with the G14 and Blade 14 being the smallest. But honestly, I think there's more to it than just the size and weight. Because out of all 4 of those 14-inch gaming laptops, personally, I'd prefer to take the Legion Slim 5 with me, as I just enjoyed using it. It's the only one with an OLED screen and 2 M.2 storage slots. But the trade-off is it's the only 14-inch laptop with only soldered memory. The G14 has 1 memory slot for upgrades, while MSI's Stealth 14 and Razer's Blade 14 have 2 slots, which was a first for 14-inch gaming laptops in 2023. CPU performance wasn't too different between them, but in GPU performance, technically the G14 can max out with RTX 4090 graphics, so it would do way better in games than the 4060 config we tested, but also cost way more money too. Of course, putting an RTX 4090 laptop GPU in something the size of a G14 means it's obviously not going to perform anywhere near its full potential. A bigger 16, 17, or 18-inch laptop with higher power limit and more cooling is just going to perform better. But still, there's absolutely no doubt that it wouldn't be the best performing 4090 laptop in games. So hey, that's an option if you're made of money. And although I personally enjoyed the Slim 5 the most, for most people, I think Asus's Zephyrus G14 is the winner of this category. It's just a great all-rounder 14-inch laptop. But for most people, I wouldn't recommend going above the RTX 4060, maybe 4070. Now let's find out which gaming laptop has risen from the ashes and improved the most this year. For me, this has easily got to be Gigabyte's Aura 17X. Last year, I thought it was one of the worst gaming laptops available, but this year, Gigabyte have almost completely redesigned it and improved it significantly, fixing most, but not all the problems that I had with it. Last year's version was limited to a 130 watt power limit with the top-end RTX 3080 Ti, but now this year, the 4080 and 4090s can run up to the full 175 watts. And this is thanks to the new vapor chamber cooler with 4 fans, double compared to last year's design. This year's design is better too, with more nice feeling metal improving the build quality compared to last year's all plastic design. I wish they would have upgraded the screen a bit more. Around 300 nits with no overdrive mode on their top of the line model isn't ideal. And I still can't believe that the keyboard doesn't light up the secondary functions. Seriously, they pretty much redesigned the entire laptop, then decide to keep being one of the only laptops with a keyboard that doesn't light up all secondary key functions? Why? But I guess more importantly, they did at least add an RGB light bar on the back. ASUS's ROG Zephyrus M16 also deserves a shout out here, as the 2023 model improved on things quite a bit, making it one of the best laptops of the year. This year's M16 adds in a third fan to improve thermals and allow for a higher GPU power limit in a thinner laptop design, so more performance in games. It goes from 1 memory slot with soldered memory to 2 memory slots for better upgradeability. And the new mini LED screen looks great. So then, which gaming laptop had the best RGB lighting? This might just be the most important award category of them all. Alright, but seriously, there's actually a bit to consider. How do we define best? If we're purely talking about the most RGB lighting you can fit into a laptop, then Lenovo's Legion 9 has you covered. With a per-key RGB keyboard, a light bar that runs along the front and back, and even wraps around some of the sides, as well as an RGB logo on the lid. There are plenty of other gaming laptops with light bars, but to me, most of them are over-the-top unicorn spew. I mean, the Legion 9 does have a lot going on, but I think Lenovo's is more tasteful somehow, with thinner light bars that have a more subtle look. The lower tier Legion 7 only has the front light bar, and personally, I like how that looks more compared to ASUS and MSI. Again, I think it's just more subtle and neat. If you want maximum brightness, then by all means ASUS and MSI. Alienware's X16 is similar with its rear ring, but it can get so bright that you can't actually see the ports, so it's not very practical unless you lower the brightness. Again, it's personal preference, but I think the software for managing RGB on the Legions is simpler than ASUS and MSI. As for keyboard lighting, I think all of Razer's laptops have the nicest looking lighting. The keys get bright, they're evenly lit, and they just look great. Ultimately, something like RGB lighting and how the laptop looks is gonna come down to personal preference. But personally, I think Lenovo gets the win whether we're talking about software to manage RGB, maximum total quantity of RGB, and just overall tastefulness. Just before we get to the best gaming laptops of the year, we need to talk about content creation. Although I mostly focus on gaming laptop models these days, the fact is, content creation needs a good CPU, good GPU, good screen, and enough memory, which are all things that gaming laptops seem to have. Adobe Premiere performance was extremely similar with Intel's Core i9-13900HX and AMD's Ryzen 9 7945HX chips when paired with Nvidia's RTX 4090 graphics. The SCAR 18 had a small lead in DaVinci Resolve, but again, those others weren't too far behind in this workload. The SCAR 18 was first in Adobe Photoshop, but once more, those AMD-based SCAR 17s and XMG laptop weren't far behind. So at least in terms of pure performance, it seems like ASUS's SCAR 17 was generally on top. Of course, there's more to life than just raw performance. Content creation also needs a good color-accurate screen. And although I think OLED screens are perfect for content creation, as mentioned, we only tested one this year on a Lenovo Legion Slim 5 14-inch. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to sit there editing videos on a 14-inch screen, which instead means that we need to look at the mini LED screens that we reviewed this year. We tested the ASUS Zephyrus M16, Razer Blade 16, and MSI Titan GT77, all of which had mini LED screens with similar color gamut. However, the M16 was way brighter than the others. Honestly though, ASUS's SCAR 18 still has excellent color gamut and decent brightness. Granted, not quite as high as those mini LED options, but considering its higher performance earlier, I think this combination lets the SCAR 18 win this category. Plus, editing on a bigger 18-inch screen just looks nicer in my opinion. Just before the best gaming laptops of the year, we need to discuss the most disappointing category. Normally, I give this award to the most disappointing laptop of the year, but compared to last year, most of the laptops we tested are at least somewhat decent. I mean, we have things like MSI's GF63, but at this point, is that really disappointing if it's been the same for the last 2 or 3 years? So instead of picking a specific laptop this year, I'm instead going to give the most disappointing award to Nvidia's GeForce RTX 40 series laptop GPUs. The RTX 4050, 4060, and 4070 laptop GPUs are all advertised with up to 140 watts of power, just like last gen 30 series. And with 30 series, we were taught that more power equals more performance. But unlike last gen, the new 40 series maxes out at around 100 watts due to a voltage limit. Basically, this means there's no point spending more money for a higher powered 140 watt 4050, 4060, or 4070, as it will perform the same in games. And let's not forget that when they launched at CES, Nvidia stated that RTX 4050 laptops would start from $1,000 US. And we certainly saw that in the bottom of the barrel options like MSI's GF63, which now goes for $400 to $500 less and is actually priced what I think it's worth, finally. So Nvidia's launch of $1,000 4050 laptops either means that brands were not allowed to sell 4050s for less than $1,000 for some period of time, or it gives brands an excuse to sell suboptimal garbage laptops for $1,000. One of those is true and I don't know which, but either way it's not great. We really didn't start seeing reasonable prices until more than halfway through the year. Of course, MSI weren't the only ones. Even Lenovo was asking $1,450 for a Legion Pro 5i with RTX 4050 graphics and i5 processor back in April. Now 7 months on, it's possible to get an RTX 4070 model for less money, which is much more reasonable. Now, to be fair to the 4050, I do think that it is a reasonable option at $700, and we have seen some pretty good laptops for that price, like Lenovo's Lock or Acer's Nitro 5. At least it gets us 6 gigs of VRAM compared to the 3050 last year, which only went up to 4 gigs. And in 2023, they did also boost the 3050 from 4 to 6 gigs. But the 4050 is like 38% faster in games without factoring in features like DLSS or frame generation. But we only started getting those prices that I think make sense in the last month or two. The higher tier RTX 4080 and 4090 on the other hand actually offer a nice gen-on-gen improvement compared to 30 series. Of course, you have to spend a fair bit more money to actually get one of those, but they do at least offer quite a nice improvement. So at least it's not a case of the entire 40 series lineup being basically the same as the 30 series, but that is the case for the lower to mid-range options. And despite costing a whole lot more money, they still aren't anywhere near their desktop counterparts with the same names. So yeah, I do think RTX 40 series laptop pricing is in a way better spot today, but that just wasn't the case for the first half of the year. And with the 4050, 4060, and 4070 maxing out at 100 watts, it just left people feeling like they weren't getting the performance they paid for. I don't know, I guess they could have just listed them as 100 watt GPUs instead of 140 watt, and then we wouldn't have this problem. And I think this explains why only 55% of gaming laptops we sold through affiliate links below our videos this year were 2023 models. 45% of you, nearly half, ended up going for an older model, presumably due to better value. So if that doesn't show you that RTX 40 series hasn't been appealing, then I don't know what will. But I'm guessing this will change going into 2024, because as I covered in this video here, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get new GPUs, at least early on for laptops. Next up is the best budget gaming laptop of 2023. I've already done a whole dedicated video talking about the best budget gaming laptops here, but the winner is Lenovo's Lock. For just $700 on sale with RTX 4050 graphics, you get a great machine that has a nicer build quality compared to alternatives at this price point, as well as access to premium features like Advanced Optimus and G-Sync. Even some far more expensive gaming laptops like MSI's $5,000 Titan GT77 don't have those for some reason. Runners up in this category are Acer's Nitro 5 and the Asus TUF A16, both of which have gone on sale for $700 and $750 respectively. But of course, those prices change every day as deals come and go. So check out gaminglaptop.deal's website with the link below to get the best price on your next gaming laptop. The best mid-range gaming laptop is up next. For me, this has gotta be Lenovo's Legion Slim 5 16-inch, which is basically just a refresh of last year's popular Legion 5. Just ignore the fact that they shoved slim into the name for some reason, because it's not what I would consider to be a slim laptop. This thing has gone on sale for $899 with RTX 4060 graphics. Granted, with a lower quality 45% NTSC screen, which isn't ideal, but you can spend a bit more for a better screen. And the runner-up in this category would be the Asus TUF series, especially with the RTX 4070 config on sale for just $1,000. Granted, it does have a last-gen CPU. The design is a bit more gamery compared to the Legion, but overall they have similar features on offer and are quite good. But what about the best high-end gaming laptop for those with higher budgets? Unfortunately, we couldn't get our hands on some models this year, like Alienware's M18, and Lenovo's Legion 9 only turned up a few days ago. But out of what we did test, I was particularly impressed by the Asus Scar 18. It was often topping our benchmark charts in all sorts of different workloads, but it is also quite expensive. And realistically, you can get similar performance for far less money with something like a Lenovo Legion Pro 7, which has some excellent sales at the moment. There are plenty of other great gaming laptops available though, which is why I've covered the top 5 best gaming laptops this year in this video. So check that out next to narrow your selection down.